Dear colleagues and friends, good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon session of the CIRKLA event. As you hopefully know, we'll have 3 parallel thematic workshops, and at the end we'd like to convene you to one single co-creation workshop. So with this PowerPoint, I would like to share a few ideas around circular economy. I would like to introduce the subject and also share with you what we expect from those different workshops. So essentially this event is a networking event. So although we are online and it might be difficult to shake hands, we do hope that through these different workshops you will get to know people, you establish bridges and links with other researchers around the greater region and maybe around the world. It is all about identifying synergies, seeing who is working on what, and see how complementary we are in trying to tackle this big subject of circular economy. We do expect, as organizers of the CIRKLA event, we do expect that at the end of the day we might come up with some ideas about projects that we should promote. We also hope that we will have some priorities, see what we can do in the short term, in the longer term maybe, and we'd like you to have a special focus on the greater region. I know not everyone comes from the greater region. You might be a PhD researcher in one of our institutions, you might be a postdoc coming from even the antipodes, but despite that we ask you to have a closer look at what could be done across the borders in this quite big region around Luxembourg, including south of Belgium, including the northeast of France, including this western part of Germany and the Great Duchy of Luxembourg. So first I'd like to clarify what CIRKLA means. I guess most of you identify it as meaning circular, hopefully, but in fact CIRKLA is a word from the Esperanto language. You might know that Esperanto was this project of universal language that was designed by a Polish ophthalmologist at the end of the 19th century. The truth is that he's not been extremely successful in making it a universal language, but you would be surprised maybe to learn this Esperanto has been the official language of a very small country called Neutral Morisnet that was there for almost a century at the triple border between Netherlands, Germany and Belgium. So this has nothing immediately to do with the greater region, except that where you could be interested, it's also to know that this special territory called Neutral Morisnet, that they called Amikejo in Esperanto language, this special place is also the cradle of zinc mining and zinc metallurgy. So if you get the chance to visit Kelmis, La Calamine, I truly invite you to discover the Museum of Zinc. Now coming to our subject here of circular economy, let me introduce it by showing you this take-make disposal philosophy that we followed for almost a century now. I think we would all agree that this is not a way to go and that we cannot no longer live in this big philosophy, what I call the big generation. We are extracting resources, we are manufacturing products that have very short lifetimes, and we throw them away, we dispose them in nature. This is not the way to go, and this is not what nature tells us. Nature tells us that everything is following cycle. We know the cycle of the season. You might know, hopefully, the geological cycle. Well, nature tells us essentially that we need to take into account the whole life cycle and that we really need to think circular. And that's, of course, the basis of circular economy. Now, let me clarify that in this CIRKLA initiative, this center of expertise of the greater region, we cannot tackle all the materials, so we decided to focus essentially on what is called here technical materials. So on this nice representation of circular economy by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, you see the butterfly with 2 wings, one which is biosourced material, the other one what I love to call the geosource material. In this context here, we will not discuss the circular economy of food or of rubber, wood, typically bio-based material. We want to focus on the technical materials, which does include a lot of building materials, which does include, of course, sand, aggregates, concrete, which does include polymers, and certainly everything that is metal-based, from pure metals to complex assemblages in alloys and electronics. Now, to just introduce what we're doing with natural resources, I want to take that example of sand. Sand is probably the most widely available material. It's a material that we mine extremely intensively. Gigatons, tens of gigatons per year of sand are extracted. Until recently, we thought that this material was almost inexhaustible. Now we know that we are mining sand at a pace which is absolutely unsustainable. We are facing problems with sand availability in the short future. This is in terms of quantity, but it's also the case in terms of quality. So let me just illustrate what we do with sand. We take enormous resources of sand to eventually add the sand to concrete or to bricks to manufacture these elemental building blocks, which are bricks. Those bricks, we put them together, we glue them together in walls, and the walls, we assemble them in large shopping malls, which have sometimes a very limited lifetime of only 10 years or 20 years. This is the way we are using things, which is not extremely sustainable. But the most important thing is that we're not really thinking in the reverse way. How are we going one day to recover materials out of our shopping malls, infrastructure, out of our cities? So it's true for building materials. It's certainly also true for the very high quality sand that we use in electronics. So the best sand, the very, very pure sand, is used to manufacture, for example, photovoltaic PV quality silicon, which means a silicon with 6-9 minimum behind the comma. So this high purity silicon is manufactured in monocrystals or polycrystals. It is sliced into slices of only 100-200 microns, assembled in these complex photovoltaic cells. The photovoltaic cells themselves are assembled into modules, modules into panels, panels into roofs, and again you have this whole array of solar panels which are supposed to live typically 25 years. And I don't think we really thought about the end of life of these panels. How are we going to disassemble them? How are we going to recover the material, this ultra pure silicon, and how eventually will we be able to manufacture new solar panels. So this simple example of sand already illustrates the challenges that we face both in the building materials sector and in the electronics sector. The truth is that until recently, the driver of innovation has been efficiency. We've been looking essentially at the lifetime of a technology, and we've tried to make the technology as functional as possible. We've also tried to save energy. If you look at the evolution of lighting during the last decades, we've been using this fantastic technology called the tungsten halogen bulb. We've been using it for almost 100 years, and then recently we decided to shift towards diodes. By doing so, we really promote a technology that is using 10 times less energy. So indeed, for the same amount of light, you use 10 times less energy when you use diodes instead of tungsten filaments. This is true, but this is because we just look at the lifetime of the technology. If we were considering the resources we need to build that technology, and most importantly, if we were looking at the end of life and how to recover resources, then probably we would look at things in a very different way. So lighting is a good example, but let me take another example, which is electricity storage, so energy storage. You see that the most classical technology today is this lead acid battery. It's still a technology we have in most of our cars. We know that tomorrow this technology will be replaced by lithium-ion batteries, obviously because they are lightweight, so they offer a lot of advantages. But again, when it comes to recycling, we see that the lead acid battery is the overall champion. A lead acid battery, it is massive lead dipped into a sulfuric acid, and the casing is a plastic casing. So if you want to separate lead from sulfuric acid from plastic, it's a child's game. Whereas with lithium-ion batteries, we have these individual cells which are like lasagna of aluminium sheet and copper sheet, and in between this so-called black mass, which is made out of natural and synthetic graphite, which is made out of lithium, magnesium, nickel, cobalt oxides, and all this is glued together with different organic materials. So when it comes to disassembling, when it comes to trying to recover the original material, there is no way to do it mechanically in the lithium-ion batteries. And we need to go towards very fine disaggregation of the material, and we need to use extractive metallurgy and even rather sophisticated energy-intensive processes. So There is room there for improvement, both in terms of design and certainly in terms also of recycling technologies. And this is what we would like to tackle in this CIRKLA initiative. Speaking about circular economy in general, I always insist on the fact that we are not yet circular, and it will still take a long time before we become circular. Why? Well, first of all, because to satisfy the needs of the Green Deal and typically to be able to deploy all these renewable energies that we will need, we need to feed the loop. A lot of metals like lithium, indium, gallium, germanium, but even copper are not enough present in the loop to be simply recycled. So yes, there is a huge need for extraction and mining. This is something that most people do underestimate. We will not so much discuss mining in these workshops today, but we will, as I just illustrate, try to think about the way we use these resources. What kind of functional material are we developing? How about composite material? Should we really promote those, or should we really think in terms of materials which are easier to recycle, easier to disassemble, products which are easier to recycle? This is of course one of the important challenges. Then there is another challenge which has to do with slowing down the loop. This has to do with building projects which last longer, which are easier to reuse, to repair, to recycle. It also has to do, of course, with non-technical aspects which are linked to consumer behavior, which are linked to sharing economy or different business models, and we are open to those discussions in the workshop. It is not just about engineering thoughts, it's also about contribution from non-engineers. So please, if you do not have the technical background, feel free to contribute your ideas. If you come from humanities and other disciplines, feel at home. And last but not least, as I said, we need technologies to close the loop, and this has to do with the urban mining and recycling processes, which is the topic of the third workshop. So we decided to have these three workshops because these workshops allow us to focus on very concrete challenges. The building materials, the building sector is one particular sector. All this question of materials and product design is very well focused, and urban mining and recycling is the third pillar. In these different workshops that will be led by my colleagues, I do expect that you will discuss what could be done, what should be done in terms both of education, in terms of research, in terms of innovation. What can we do together? How can we reorganize our science to tackle the challenges? And then, of course, do not forget the broader picture. Do not forget the transversal dimensions, typically the Sustainable Development Goals. Do not forget that we would like to link all these disciplines. We want to work across the borders. CIRKLA means working across the borders of the greater region, cultural borders, geographical borders, also working across the borders of the different scientific disciplines. So in the co-creation workshop, we'll try to keep in mind that it's not just about engineering, as I just said, it's also about how to involve humanities, how to involve business schools into rethinking our model of the circular economy, our model of manufacturing products and making resources available at end of life to future generations. The co-creation workshop, well, it will depend on you. It's a bottom-up process. You will come with your ideas. What I can already say is that we are looking forward to identify any existing initiative. As we often said, CIRKLA is already alive, a lot of things are already going on. Local initiatives, eventually cross-border initiatives, we want to map them, we want to know about them, we want to make them visible and to bring them under one single umbrella of CIRKLA. So that's already one goal for today. Let's identify everything that's going on. Second, we want to build a community. So today you're essentially linked to one of the 7 higher education institutions, but very quickly we want CIRKLA to be a knowledge innovation community. We look forward to have representatives from industry, from research centers, and from our universities. So there again, if you know strong groups which are working on topics of interest to us, please help us identify these groups. Indicate, for example, research centers that you think should join the CIRKLA initiative. And last but not least, with all your ideas, your projects, we hope that we will be able to build a vision for the future and very soon look at financial support to turn your ideas into projects and your projects into successes. So thanks a lot for attending these workshops. Thanks a lot for sharing your energy and your ideas this afternoon. I look forward to meeting you very soon and hopefully in presence. So thank you very much and see you soon. Bye.